have probably seen pictures of it, right? This incredible multi-tiered display of dolls, all decked out in the amazing robes of Japan's ancient imperial court. It's just a stunning sight, this perfect little world of silent royal figures. But what if I told you that this beautiful, elaborate tradition actually started with a super simple, almost stark ritual of throwing a paper doll into a river to get rid of bad luck?
Welcome to the Japan Deep Dive Report. Today, we are unpacking one of Japan's most gorgeous and deeply symbolic festivals, Hinamatsuri, also known as the Doll Festival. So let's just dive right into the central question here. Every year, around March 3rd, families all across Japan with young daughters go through this whole process of setting up these incredible displays. And it's a huge deal. We're talking treasured family heirlooms passed down for generations. But why? What's the real story behind this silent, beautiful court that just kind of pops up in living rooms for a few weeks every year? Well, you're going to want to stick around, because the journey from a simple paper cutout to a magnificent royal wedding is, honestly, a wild ride.
Okay, so before we jump in our time machine and head way back to its origins, let's first get a handle on what Hinamatsuri looks like today. What is this festival all about in the 21st century?
At its heart, Hinamatsuri, which is held on March 3rd, is what's called a sekku. Now, a sekku is one of 5 ancient seasonal festivals in Japan. Think of them as signposts for the changing seasons, deeply tied to nature and the old farming calendar. This particular one is all about one thing: praying for the healthy growth and really the future happiness of young girls. And the celebration today is amazing. I mean, you've got the iconic Hina dolls, of course, but there are also all these special offerings. Things like a sweet, non-alcoholic sake that symbolizes purity, different kinds of mochi, chewy rice cakes, and beautiful peach blossoms. Now, the peach blossoms are key because the festival happens right when they're blooming. And in East Asia, peaches are a huge symbol of long life and chasing away evil. That's why the festival also gets this lovely nickname, Momo no Sekku, or the Peach Festival. It's really just a day of joy, beauty, and a whole lot of love. But here is where our story takes a major turn. This bright, happy, celebratory festival, filled with these gorgeous dolls and all these wishes for a happy life, it actually has a much darker, much more serious origin. Yeah, the answer to where this all began isn't in some fancy palace. It's in the cold, flowing water of a river. So this brings us to the real, ancient purpose of the whole thing. Its roots, you see, are less about celebration and way more about a pretty desperate need to get clean, spiritually speaking. It was all about purification. And to understand this, you have to know about this thing called a katashiro. A katashiro was a simple little doll, maybe made of paper or straw, in the shape of a person. And its whole job was to act like a kind of spiritual sponge. Seriously. The idea was that this little object could stand in for you and literally soak up all your impurities, all your bad luck, even your sickness.
The old ritual was super straightforward. You take this paper katashiro and rub it all over your body. The belief was that as you did this, all your spiritual grime, your sickness, your bad vibes, all of it got transferred into that doll. Then you take this little doll, now totally loaded up with a year's worth of bad stuff, and you just throw it into a river or the ocean. You'd let the current carry all your misfortune away forever. It's a really powerful image, and a total 180 from the fancy dolls we see today.
Now, this Japanese custom didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Back in the day, there was a lot of cultural exchange happening, and this practice ended up merging with a similar purification festival that came over from China called Joshi. The Chinese festival also involved going to the riverside to purify yourself on the 3rd day of the 3rd month. So, the two traditions just kind of flowed together, like the rivers they were celebrated on, and created this new hybrid custom that got locked into the date of March 3rd.
Okay, so how in the world did we get from a disposable paper doll you chuck into a river to a priceless family heirloom that you display in your home? Well, the transformation is an incredible story of art, high society, and playtime.
This definitely didn't happen overnight. Way back in the elegant Heian period, the court aristocrats took the ritual and turned it into these fancy riverside parties. Then, fast forward a few hundred years, and doll-making skills had gotten so good that the paper dolls were becoming these beautiful, ornate works of art. They were just too nice to throw away, so people started keeping them as decorations. Then, in the Edo period, something really crucial happened. This tradition of keeping the dolls merged with something called Hina Asobi, which was basically a fancy kind of dollhouse play popular with aristocratic girls. The two ideas fused together, and bam! The purification ritual transformed into a festival to celebrate and protect girls. And by the middle of the Edo period, what was once just for the rich had spread to everyone, becoming the nationwide celebration we know today.
Alright, so when you look at a modern Hina doll set, it's super important to know you are not looking at a random collection of pretty dolls. Nope! You are looking at a very specific, frozen moment in time, a snapshot of a huge royal event.
So what is that event? It's an imperial wedding. The entire display, from top to bottom, is a recreation of a wedding ceremony happening at the Shishinden, which was the main hall for state ceremonies in the old Kyoto Imperial Palace, the center of Japanese court culture for centuries. The two dolls on the very top tier, that's the emperor and empress on their wedding day.
And every single tiny little thing you see on the lower tiers has a specific meaning. Those miniature chests of drawers, the tiny little vanity with a mirror, those perfect little tea sets, that's all meant to be the bride's dowry. It represents everything a noble bride would bring with her to her new home. It's a huge symbol of the parents' wish for their daughter to have a prosperous, stable, and truly happy marriage.
And hey, here's a fantastic little bit of trivia for you, a real pro tip. A lot of people in Japan call the top two dolls, the imperial couple, Oodari-sama. But technically, that's not quite right. Dari actually means the imperial palace itself. The correct names for the dolls are Otokobina for the male doll and Meibina for the female doll. It's a tiny detail, but it just goes to show how deep the history of all this really is.
And just when you think you've got it all figured out, this whole thing reveals another fascinating layer: regional differences. Yeah, it turns out not everyone in Japan can agree on exactly how to set the stage for this royal wedding.
It all boils down to one simple question: which side does the emperor sit on? If you're in the Kanto region, around modern-day Tokyo, you'll see the male doll placed on the viewer's left. But if you head over to the Kansai region, where the old capital of Kyoto is, you'll find him on the viewer's right. So what gives? Why the difference?
Well, the Kansai placement is actually the original historically correct way to do it. See, in traditional Japanese court etiquette, the left side of the room, from the perspective of the person sitting there, was the seat of highest honor. So for the emperor to be in the most important spot, he has to be on his left, which, for us looking at the display, puts him on our right. The Kanto style is actually a more modern thing that got influenced by Western customs of having the man on the left. So, let's tie all of these threads together. After traveling from river rituals to royal weddings, what's the real core message of Hinamatsuri for families in Japan today? What does it all mean in the modern world?
When you boil it all down, it's really just this profound expression of a parent's love. The dolls? They still carry that ancient meaning. They're protectors, meant to absorb any potential misfortune, just like those old katashiro. The wedding scene? That's the ultimate hope for a daughter's future, a happy, wonderful life. And hey, even the food plays a part. The kusamochi, made with that strong-smelling mugwort, is believed to keep evil spirits away. Every single element is a prayer for a daughter's well-being.
And as one final thought, check out this fascinating, almost forgotten bit of history. There used to be a custom called Nochi no Hina, which means the later Hina, where families would actually bring the dolls out for a second display on September 9th. It's just a beautiful reminder that these traditions are living, breathing things, with layers that can get lost and sometimes rediscovered over time.
And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. From a simple paper doll tossed in a river to a treasured imperial court, Hinamatsuri has changed so dramatically, but it has always held on to its core wish for protection and happiness. It really makes you wonder, as our own cultures and our own traditions keep evolving, what important parts of our own history might we have forgotten that are just waiting for us to rediscover them?